is talkTV correspondent Oliver Whitfield-Mirchich. Oliver, my gosh, the news is changing almost by the minute.
Yes, that's right, Vanessa. These new allegations have come to the BBC, reported via BBC News. Now, a second young person is alleging that this BBC presenter, who remains unnamed, got in touch with that young person using dating applications. Then the conversations moved to different social media sites. talkTV understands that the sites being used by this presenter include Instagram and Twitter. Once these conversations had moved online, the young person then alluded that he might reveal the identity of the BBC presenter who'd asked him to keep his name a secret. When the BBC presenter saw that, he then apparently sent threatening and menacing messages which were full of swear words, which have left this second young person worried and remaining fearful. Now, we've approached the BBC to ask for a comment on these latest allegations, but so far we have not been given any response. Separately, talkTV also understands that the unions which represent journalists in the building behind me have been having active conversations with the BBC to find a way to protect them better. Now, after the first allegations came out in the Sun newspaper, you remember that the BBC presenter could not be named for legal reasons, including privacy and defamation. That has then led to the false identification, the defamatory identification of other BBC presenters, including Gary Lineker and others who've since had to come out and say, no, it was not me. In light of this second allegation that has appeared from a second separately different person, I've spoken to a defamation lawyer to try to find out when it might be possible that we find out the name of this presenter.
I think it's really challenging, and the fact that there has been a second complaint will be a factor that will weigh into the conversation about whether the BBC presenter should be named. But as before, the BBC will want to investigate these allegations at least to a certain point before deciding to name the BBC presenter at the centre of this. They will also want to take guidance from the police, who are now, leading on this. They're making inquiries and have asked the BBC to pause their investigation.
Would you name, if you had a media client at the moment, would you advise them now is a safe enough time to name this individual?
I think the law in the UK, it dictates that where there are allegations of criminality, that people like the BBC presenter shouldn't be named until there are criminal charges brought, or unless and until there are criminal charges brought. In this situation, given that the first alleged victim has said that the claims of their parents are rubbish, I don't think I would be advising clients to name the BBC presenter, because if these allegations are proven to be false, there are serious risks to the publication who name the presenter.
Vanessa, there is huge pressure on the BBC this evening to find out more about what has happened. It raises fresh questions about the BBC presenter's behaviour. All the while, the Metropolitan Police are asking the BBC to stop their investigations while they assess whether the police is going to launch a formal investigation of its own. In previous cases, it has not been unusual for there to be more than one complainant. I think the expectation is there could be more allegations on this story yet to come.
And Ollie, the pressure is mounting, but in various different directions. So the pressure is mounting, as we hear, on the BBC. The pressure is mounting, as we hear, on the police. The pressure is mounting on other presenters who want to say, it's not me. And the pressure's mounting, it must be hugely, on the presenter at the centre of this himself, because he must be feeling all manner of pressures from all different directions, either if he is innocent or he thinks he is innocent, to come forward and say, as that young man said through his lawyer, it wasn't me, or I haven't done anything, or I haven't broken the law, or this whole story is rubbish cooked up by the parents of this young man. It's nonsense. I didn't do it. I'll be able to prove it. I can show you that. Or if it's not nonsense, it's not rubbish, he is in some way culpable or might have broken the law or whatever might have gone on, to come out and say that, to say, I don't know, I didn't mean to, I'm very sorry, these are my sexual proclivities, I'm going to have to explain it to my own family and I'll have to do that, that's a private matter, goodbye and please get off my case or something. But the keeping silent thing, when, as we now know, 1 in every 6 people in the United Kingdom claims to know who he is, that's 10 million people, it's a big deal to keep your head down when 10 million people know who you are, isn't it?
And this is the conundrum that the BBC faces. For privacy reasons and for defamation reasons relating to HR law, it is not allowed to identify who this BBC presenter is. The BBC, in some ways, is sort of hamstrung. The only real option that we could see is either the police revealing that name through an official criminal charge, the person involved revealing who the presenter is, or a MP sitting in Parliament using parliamentary privilege in the House of Commons to make that revelation. Earlier on, Tim Davie faced questions from BBC Radio 4. Tim Davie has not taken any questions from any external media organisation, even though here at talkTV we've put in bid after bid after bid to try to speak to him and specific questions. He faced that question during that interview: is this sustainable? He's pointing to all of the various different mechanisms that the BBC's got, the way that it tries to keep all of the processes that it's got in place. But at the moment, a review will have to be held to see whether the complaints procedure, the allegations procedure goes far enough and whether it acts quick enough as well.